Welcome, everyone. I'm Heather Bowman, Marketing Manager for Commerce Solutions at Perficient Digital, and I'm very pleased that you have all joined us today for our webinar session titled, How to Create a Customer-Focused Commerce Model. Before we get started, I want to give you all a few quick points regarding today's session. We do encourage questions, so at the close of the presentation, we will do our best to leave enough time for Q&A. However, please don't hesitate to get your questions ready and share them with us using the chat box on the left-hand bottom side of your screen during the presentation. If we do not have time and cannot get to the questions, we will follow up with you after the webinar. Today we're going to kick off the session with an overview and a short background on Perficient and Perficient Digital, our speakers, and then move right into our session. So today we'll talk a little bit about Perficient Digital. We'll move into our three areas of customer experience, omni-channel, B2B, B2X channel shifts, and then if we have time, moving into questions. So a little bit about Perficient. Perficient was founded in 1997. We are a publicly traded company and global market locations in the US, EU, China, and India. We have about 2,800 plus employees, 500 plus million in revenue, and 23 North American locations. Perficient also has our in-house agency, Perficient Digital. Our digital agency's purpose is built to help companies that believe customer experience is the defining strategic imperative of our day. With the strategic imagination of an agency, unleashed by the deep technical know-how of a consultancy, our execution never fails our vision. We dream big, we build beautiful, measure confidently, and optimize obsessively. Our full-service offering is designed to tackle your ever-changing, ever-increasing business challenges, and end-to-end is just the beginning. With our agency, we are 200 strong, and we have 5 locations across the United States, in Ann Arbor, Atlanta, Irvine, Milwaukee, and St. Louis. With that, today we have two speakers in our session. We have Anjali Yakkundi, who is a Forrester analyst, senior analyst serving the e-business channel strategy professionals at Forrester. And we have Steve Gatto, who's a partner specialist in the commerce and digital experience here at Perficient Digital. So with that, let's welcome Anjali, and we hope you enjoy the session.
Hi, thank you, Heather, for the nice introduction. So I'm excited to be here today to talk a little bit more about the transformation that we're seeing happening when it comes to digital commerce. And I think we've seen this transformation happening most acutely in retail, but seeing it happen across different verticals and industries who are selling direct to consumer. It starts with a firm like Macy's, for example. And so if you've been following the news at all, you know, Macy's, for example, is undergoing a massive transformation where they're announcing that they're closing about 100 stores this year. And that's actually about almost 15% of their total number of stores in North America. So we're starting to see this massive shift. It's not just Macy's. Sears, JCPenney, for example, are also closing stores. And we've even seen others decide to close all their stores and become online-only businesses. So that's firms like BCBG, BB, for example. They've shuttered all doors, and today they're just becoming an online-only business. So clearly there's some sort of disruption or transformation happening. On the other hand, we're starting to see that there are stores that are thriving in this era. These are stores that are able to create differentiation and new value propositions. So for example, stores like Zara or H&M or Forever 21, for example, have found ways to get faster to the consumer so that a consumer no longer has to wait 6 to 8 months after they see a look on the runway to actually purchase it in the stores. But what the Zaras and H&Ms of the world have done is actually change the model with faster manufacturing, distribution, and buying processes so that their customers now can actually buy looks that they saw on the runway just a couple weeks or a month after they saw it. So they can actually go in and buy that same look in the store. Others have started to become more destination stores, so places to differentiate from digital competitors. They've started to create their own stores as a destination with added service. So IKEA, for example, has been able to do this not only with their low prices and their fast models similar to the fast fashion shops, but they've also been able to do this with the things like their restaurants. And that's been so successful for them actually, that there's been a lot of press earlier this year that IKEA is actually considering making restaurants stand alone, so without the store experience. So these types of experiences, whether it's fast fashion or it's more of a destination retail, have started to differentiate in this age of disruption. Other firms have started to manage this disruption by aggressively acquiring. So we saw PetSmart, for example, purchase Chewy.com for $3.36 billion earlier this year. And this was a way in which they could actually gain some of the e-commerce business by actually purchasing one of their main digital competitors. We've started to see other firms branch out with new e-commerce acquisitions. So Walmart famously, for example, purchased Jet.com, but they've actually purchased others like ModCloth, for example, to try and broaden and expand their purview. And they're now rumored to be purchasing Bonobos. So I guess we'll see what happens in the coming months. And of course there's Amazon. So Amazon is actually going the reverse way. You know, Amazon has started at e-commerce, started with the books, and obviously has moved into a vast array. They're now the #1 e-commerce retailer for apparel. But they're also now moving the opposite way, starting in e-commerce, and now they're starting to build stores. So for example, the flagship bookstores and getting into actual grocery stores. And actually Amazon, it's not just in retail either and B2C, but Amazon is also beginning to start to disrupt the B2B models. So while Amazon won't break out total sales figures for their Amazon business, their B2B experience, they have been quoted as saying there's a 20% monthly growth rate that's been holding steady. They've also seen that it's starting to offer at least 9 million business-specific products, and it's continually expanding its purchasing and selling services designed to make online transactions easier and faster for businesses. And their head of the B2B experience has been quoted as saying that they're trying to reduce the time it takes to buy and sell supplies for B2B buyers. So we're starting to see that this started in B2C retail, but is actually going to influence and change the way B2B buyers and buyers across verticals are starting to purchase on digital channels. We at Forrester believe that this is retail is at the forefront of what we believe is a major digital disruption. This digital disruption is happening because of the proliferation of digital technologies. And we're starting to acutely see this in the commerce landscape, whether it's in retail or B2B or in new firms who are looking to go direct to consumer. And as digital is transforming, we see 3 major areas of transformation where we as brands and companies need to start innovating and transforming. For us at Forrester, it all starts with the customer experience. So customer experience is going to be the first place in which we need to manage some major transformation. The second area is going to be an omni-channel. So how are we delivering those experiences across various customer touchpoints? And the third area of transformation that we see is a shift in selling models. So going to consumers and selling direct to consumers in different ways. So I thought I'd start with customer experience and ask you guys to help me by participating in a poll question. So we want to know, within your organization, would you assess your customer experience vision as well understood by your employees? So is this something that your employees really understand? Is everyone across your business on the same page? So I'll give you a few moments to start answering this. I'm starting to see some responses roll in here. So I'll give you a few more seconds. I see some answers coming in. It's an interesting question because it's something that we, for many of us as business leaders, talk about with our leadership teams, that customer experience is going to be critical. But we often have trouble disseminating it across the organization. So I'm going to close the poll here now. It's interesting. As you can see here, we found that many of you find that your organization is not well understood across your business. So about 61% of you say you disagree that customer experience is well understood by all employees. And only 4.3% of you strongly agree that this is well understood. I think this is pretty common for what we're seeing across the organization, and it's critical that we have to start disseminating that information because customer experience, we believe at Forrester, is going to be very critical as it goes forward. It's so critical, we believe, because of digital. If you think about it, your customer today has a computer that they carry around with them in their pockets and in their purses, and it's with them all the time. That might not sound exciting to us today when we all have a smartphone, an iPhone, or an Android device, but imagine telling yourself 15 years ago that you'd have access to whatever you wanted, any information out there, wherever you are. Whether you're at home, whether you're shopping, whether you're in your day-to-day life, in business or on travel. This is an immense power that your customer has been granted, all because of mobile and this proliferation of digital channels. And we at Forrester see that we're starting to see a huge increase in U.S. adults who are starting to use not just mobile, but use different devices. So from our latest data, we found that 73% of U.S. online adults use a laptop, 75% use a smartphone, and 52% use a tablet. The biggest growth that we're seeing is in the smartphone space. So we're constantly connected. And today, in order to reach that constantly connected customer, it's difficult. It takes a different type of business model and different ways of engagement to engage with that customer. But it's not just that we have to change our customer engagement, it's that our customer is also more empowered than ever today. Because our customer, if you think about it, they have that little computer that they can take with them anywhere. And as they're doing that, they can look up information about you as a company whenever they want. They have access to information for us as a brand that we may not control. They have access to what others are saying about us on social channels and ratings and reviews, which they didn't necessarily have access to before. So we as brands, as retailers, as manufacturers, distributors, whatever business you're in, we've lost power because our customer is now the one who has the sole source of advantage. They have all the information about us, information that we may or may not control. We've seen this acutely in retail, where we're seeing an increase of use of mobile device in the store. And typically it's to do things like price compare. So about 1 in 5 shoppers today use their mobile device while in physical stores to price compare. They're using it to look up new product information. And about 15% are using their mobile device to read customer reviews of a product, to get information that we don't control about the products that they sell. And we expect this at Forrester to continue to increase in single and double digits in the coming years. This is so important, in fact, this idea that customers have all of this power and it's going to be a critical source of differentiation, that we at Forrester believe we've actually entered a new business era that we call the age of the customer. Because your customers are now empowered through social, mobile, and other digital technologies, which has given them the power to disrupt your business. In the age of the customer, the old sources of competitive advantage, things like manufacturing strength, distribution power, connected PCs, and supply chain that we saw in the age of information, are business as usual. We believe that now, starting in 2010, going into this next business cycle, that we believe the main competitive advantage that truly competitive companies have to become customer obsessed in order to survive. That means they have to have deep knowledge of and engagement with their customers. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to the Perficient team to talk a little bit more about their framework for customer experience and how they're helping solve some of these issues in the age of the customer.
Hey, thanks, Anjali. So folks, this is Steve Gatto here from Perficient. And yeah, for each one of these sections, we're going to add a little bit of context to these themes that Anjali introduced. And the first one here, we'll add some additional context is around in this, in our experience around the age of the customer. We just feel like you got to look beyond the surface, meaning that you got to look beyond simply trusting your instinct when it comes to defining the plan for what either customer experience or customer engagement means for your business. So if I just put this another way, we all got experience to draw from, obviously, but we also need to utilize our abilities to garner data-driven insights to really aid and validate our plans. And here we think there's a lot of value in experience, and this experience can manifest itself in things like corresponding methodologies, complete with frameworks, really can help you define what aspects of the customer experience make sense for your focus. So I'm going to give you a quick sample what this looks like for us and some of the work that we've been doing in the market. So on this first slide that you see painted for you, you see something here branded Envision Framework. This is the work that really goes on upstream from deploying any of the experiences itself. Now our work here really breaks out milestones in areas of like assessment or strategy or planning. Under assessment you're going to see terms like discovery and research and benchmarking and analysis. This is really equating to just different approaches to analyze first, second, third-party data really for the insights. And these are the insights that drive things like strategy. Right now we can utilize some quantifiable results to really get aligned with the company's vision. You can use them to define things like segmentation, but maybe even more importantly here, highlight what are your most profitable segments and then define the corresponding journeys that we all like to work on. And as always, you got to set that criteria for measurement, so your KPIs. And last but not least, you can't overlook planning. Yeah? So this is where we begin to define things like roadmaps, technology implications, where technology truly becomes the enabler for some of these plans. So maybe some thoughts there for you when you think about envisioning what customer experience may look like for your organization. Now many times, oftentimes this will lead into what we'll call customer experience innovation, or how are you going to begin to plan then and differentiate across customer experience when you're looking to acquire, engage, and then retain clients. What we're really acknowledging here is that there's just got to be a plan kind of to complement all those creative aspects that really surround innovation. So the thought becomes, how are you and most importantly here, your extended teams, how are you going to envision what this customer experience looks like? How are you going to make these innovative plans real across IT or marketing or ops or commerce? And maybe even further, like disseminate these, as Anjali mentioned, throughout your enterprise. And so with some of the terms that you see painted here that really speak to our mantra around, we like to work on thinking big, but you can start small and act fast to respond to some of the dynamics in today's marketplace. And so with these two then, whether it's envision or innovation, part and parcel become practical initiatives that can really facilitate this process and help you mobilize your teams. So give you a quick perspective what those look like under this theme of customer experience. We got a couple of things that I'll just give you a perspective on. Maybe you can think about what these could mean within your organization. Things like customer experience IQ or customer experience AMP. Really all designed to take this theoretical and making it real. In the case of AMP, CX AMP, this is really designed to create breakthrough customer experience visualization and help you build consensus among your teams. So a really powerful initiative probably within your organization. Now CXIQ is slightly different. It's another initiative. It's really helped the design and organization gain focus, right? Focus on across the different groups on what the CX initiatives should be. So let's take just a minute. I'll give you just a further perspective on CXIQ specifically. So as this one paints for you, this slide, here are our components that facilitate this focus on customer experience, really helping an organization identify their IQ or their focus. Well, first you got to define it. So we got criteria. Here we've measured this across 7 dimensions on what we found organizations should assess to aid their focus. Now from that, you might imagine, yep, there's tools. Some of these are very straightforward like online surveys, but many times they can transcend to like face-to-face engagements. Third of which, you got to document, you got to measure. This helps to set expectations, track our progress, really a confidence booster, though, among those that are participating. And last but not least, as you might expect, scorecards, deliverables. Things you will need around planning customer experience. And this is where it gets really interesting. Now, there's many forms that these can take. Now, this picture on the right, what this actually depicts is the outcome for one of our engagements of different departments. So think like IT could be the blue line, marketing could be the red line, commerce could be the green line. Maybe they took the CXIQ survey and they assessed their strengths and weaknesses across those 7 dimensions. Look at these insights. Look at the differences here. Really valuable, trying to get an organizational to look at their strengths, to look at their weaknesses, all with the goal here of just aligning an approach and roadmap how they're going to enhance on customer experience. So there's some context. Hopefully that adds just another perspective to customer experience and some of the things that are going on in the market today. So with that, Anjali, I think I'll pass it back to you. We'll start our second section.
Great. Well, yeah, so the second major disruptor that we're seeing when it comes to this age of digital is omnichannel. And I think it's a nice follow-up after customer experience because it really has to do with this idea that because customers are using so many devices, today we have to deliver experiences very differently than before. But first I thought I'd talk a little bit about what's happening to physical experiences. We started off by talking about Macy's, who's closing. There's this idea that the stores are dying and e-commerce is the way to go. And so there's a perception out there that by omnichannel, it's really about delivering digital customer experiences. You can see this is a headline from Newsweek, for example, saying that brick and mortar retailers are in a death spiral against online stores. But we at Forrester don't quite believe that. We believe actually instead omnichannel is about how do you deliver in a seamless customer experience no matter what device or what touch point the customer is engaging with you on. And that actually does still include physical experiences. So this is some of our latest data around U.S. behavior and shopping behavior. And we found that still U.S. online total retail sales, both online and offline, still account for $3.39 trillion. And of that, only about 11.6% of that is coming on digital channels. And of that, even smaller is coming from mobile devices. Only about 1% are coming from mobile devices. So we still look, this idea of omnichannel has sort of morphed, and many firms are talking about how omnichannel means, the rise of e-commerce. And while we certainly believe e-commerce and digital channels are growing, it's not going to be 100% of your sales. Instead, we believe in this age of omnichannel that it's going to be incredibly important to think about influence. Digital, when it comes to omnichannel, digital may not account for all of the sales, but it is certainly a major influencer into purchase. So we looked in 2016 at sales that were influenced by digital channels but transacted offline. The numbers skyrocketed. So it went from 11.6% that were actually transacted on digital channels to 49% that were actually influenced by those digital channels in North America. In Europe, it was 42% that were influenced. So there's a major reason, there's going to be this major shift that while we may not be purchasing everything on digital channels, digital is influencing our purchasing behavior. And this, we believe, is going to be the crux of the challenge when it comes to omnichannel. And we define at Forrester omnichannel as the coordination of traditional marketing channels, selling channels, fulfillment channels, all of the different customer touch points, and all of the supporting systems that help create a seamless customer experience. And we're starting to see executives buy into this idea. So for example, Karen Katz, the CEO and president of Neiman Marcus, has been quoted as saying that their omnichannel strategy is really driven by their customers, because to their customers they are one brand. Their customers do not differentiate between channels, and now neither will they. So this is going to be a major shift in organizations. We're starting to see firms reorganize because with this shift into omnichannel, so that with one customer and one brand, they now have one P&L. So we've talked to many customers. For example, Nespresso has talked publicly at a Forrester event a few weeks ago about how they're starting to give credit for online sales to in-store managers. Others have been quoted, and REI is a great example of this, where they have for many years now been giving credit to their store managers for sales that take place in a specific vicinity of their stores. So we're starting to see more examples of this. We're starting to see this as transforming not just the way you reach customers, but how you actually organize internally. And we believe there's going to be some major challenges and major roadblocks ahead that we need to get ahead of when it comes to delivering these omnichannel experiences. The first is going to be around personalization. So when it comes to omnichannel, we have to deliver a seamless, personalized experience across channels. So it's not just about delivering an experience to different customers, but actually how do we understand that it's the same customer that we're engaging with, no matter what touch point that they're engaging with us on. So this is a very simple example, but this is Crate & Barrel. So if I go to Crate & Barrel and look at their desktop website, and they know that I'm looking at this picture, they know that it's me. And as I go to other touch points, whether it's the mobile email or mobile web, they still know that this is something, that this picture is something that I'm interested in. And so that very simple level of consistent personalized engagement is very critical as we go to omnichannel. This is very product driven, but imagine if we could manage this consistent experience no matter what type of experience we're delivering, whether it's a product driven or a marketing or brand driven experience, if we knew who our customer was. Others have started to do this by doing more around sharing data and accessing customer data across touch points. So this is True Religion, and what True Religion has done is they've asked loyalty members to opt into their mobile app. And what they've done in their stores is they have set up geofencing and in-store beacons so that whenever an opted-in loyalty customer walks into the store, associates are alerted via their Apple Watch that this customer has entered the store. They can tap into their back-end systems then to uncover the customer's personal information, things like what have they bought in the past, things that are around past purchase history, preferences, etc. They can uncover that information so they can begin the conversation with the customer. We also believe that omnichannel means we have to enable fulfillment across touch points. So when it comes to fulfillment, no matter what channel our customer purchases on, whether it's the website, mobile, store, or mail order, they still see us as one company, as one brand. So they expect us to be able to fulfill in the fastest, most convenient way possible. That means that we have to start to coordinate on the back end our fulfillment channels so that we can fulfill products no matter wherever on whichever fulfillment touch point, no matter what touch point the customer has purchased on. So the most famous here, we're starting to see a huge rollout in buy online, pick up in store. But there's others as well. What about for those of us who have brands that have outlet shops? Is it possible to fulfill there or to manage returns there? What about buy in store, ship directly to your customer? So we're starting to see that omnichannel is much more about than just the front end. It's also the way in which we fulfill to our customers. And before I pass over to the Perficient team, I wanted to harp again on this point that it's not that omnichannel is about just about the e-commerce or digital channels. In this omnichannel world, we have to start to think of the store as a differentiator, as a way to differentiate against the Amazons of the world and other digital-first competitors and digital-born retailers. It can't be a burden, but we have to use the store to differentiate. So I think Ulta is a great example. Ulta is one of the retailers who is not shuttering stores. They're actually starting to open more stores in the coming year. They've been successful for a lot of reasons because of product assortment and price, very strong loyalty program, But one of the other reasons they've been successful is they're using their store as a differentiator against digital competitors. They know that something that you can't do online is get a haircut or get a facial or get your nails done. So what they've done is they've actually offered in their stores a beauty salon, because this type of service is truly differentiating compared to online retailers. There's others who've done this as well. Saks Fifth Avenue is piloting in their New York men's store, for example, starting to pilot things like a barber shop and a power lunch experience so that you can shop while having a catered lunch. They've also done things to take advantage of the store because they know that folks are going into the store to try things on, to look and feel and touch garments. So they've introduced dressing rooms that take into account natural light and have added more levels and higher levels of service into that experience. So I'll leave you with that, and before I pass it over to the Perficient team, we could talk a little bit more about how they view omnichannel.
Hey, thanks, Anjali. Yeah, likewise. Hey, day in and day out, we're working with companies on various omnichannel initiatives designed to coordinate not just channels, but also support systems. And while everybody's business obviously is a bit unique, I mean, we're all sharing similar goals. I mean, we're trying to all create, meet, and exceed those customer expectations, right? But to achieve this, I mean, in our work, I mean, each company is bringing kind of a unique position of strength, a unique set of weaknesses, and overall just some technical maturity. You know, and for those trying to make sense of all the technology options and which might be best aligned to their needs. Now again, caveat, hopefully after all the CX stuff we just discussed earlier. You know, as additional context, one thing that's growing in popularity is what we'll just term this agnostic technology guidance. So again, as everyone's kind of evolving to meet their omnichannel expectations, I mean, there's nothing wrong, obviously, with an enterprise leading tech evaluations directly with a potential software vendor. But it's interesting these days. We're doing a lot of work providing guidance, you know, for companies to help them determine like this right fit technology to enable their customer experience initiatives, especially in an omni-channel perspective. I mean, it's a consideration of, you know, not just current architectures, but along also with all those CX thoughts we just previously discussed. And I'll just say this, I mean, this guidance is really supporting this challenge that exists today. I mean, you got to make these evaluations, really place some bets across just dozens of criteria, just a number of different characteristics that account for, you know, business models that could be supported, deployment options that are supported in some of these technologies, general capabilities across how do they empower things around customer experience, how do they empower engagement, you know, a number of things from marketing, merchandising, promotions, and last but not least, what are the commercial terms, both short-term, long-term investments for some of these bets you'll make to enable customer experience. So this is one growing area of popularity, and what's really interesting coming out of this is taking sometimes these guiding conclusions and using them to actually jumpstart an innovation project like we talked about earlier. When maybe, you know, that alternative, or I'll just call it a traditional approach of the RFPs, the RFIs, maybe they're just not warranted, or maybe they just carry too much overhead for a particular initiative. So this is one area that we'll highlight for you when you think of omnichannel, how to plan for it. You know, there's a lot of things to evaluate from a technology perspective. So this is one thing that a lot of folks are looking for, so maybe you consider that. A second thing I'll note for you is just maybe for those farther along that maturity scale is this theme that's growing in popularity of cognitive, right? So this focused assistance, this focused automation that we can lend to humans to help us, right, just make better decisions, enhance these customer journeys. I mean, this is becoming more interesting these days. And so don't get us wrong. I mean, this technology really still serves as the enabler, but these emerging cognitive solutions, especially in an omni-channel perspective, I mean, they're really unique, and I'll just give it three criteria here. One, in their ability to understand. I mean, they can get in and understand both structured, but most importantly here, like unstructured data, both in its context and its meaning, really at just astonishing speeds and volumes they're able to process. So that's one, their ability to understand. Two, then they can reason. They're actually forming hypotheses, making arguments, and prioritizing, for example, things like omnichannel recommendations. And last but not least, I mean, they learn. I mean, they're continually ingesting information. They're accumulating data. They're getting insights from all these different interactions. And the key here being for these systems is that they're not programmed. I mean, you're really training these technologies, obviously by experts, but you're training these things to enhance, scale, and accelerate, this expertise we can offer on what to deploy from a personalization perspective that, Anjali, you mentioned, across omnichannel. Now this use case that's presented here is for a call center scenario, but hey, it's equally applicable to a number of scenarios across optimizing marketing and merchandising tactics, or guided selling scenarios, or just a number of customer care initiatives. So there's a second one, maybe farther along that maturity scale. And I think the last example that I'll draw for you here, there's certainly a lot of focus these days on enabling omni-channel experiences along these customer journeys. I mean, this is all about how do you deliver on these influential moments, right? These moments that are talked about all the time that drive acquisition or drive engagement or retention with your customer base. So our key initiatives here are really focused around evolving organizations and how they may have these siloed systems. So silos that were supporting a number of systems that supported just the web, or a number of systems that supported just the store or just the call center. So really evolving that to processes that support kind of omni-channel journeys and interactions, because after all, I mean, these are how customers want to do business. And so our path here typically starts with the supply chain and this fulfillment aspect that Anjali, you mentioned. And so it really gets into inventory. Where does that inventory exist? Is it at one of your locations, one of the enterprise's locations, maybe at the store, a DC, a fulfillment center? Do you have this on hand, or is it in transit? Is it on the ground? Is it on the water? Is it in the air? Let's hope not, kind of expensive. But once you can actually have this global visibility of inventory across your supply chain, now you can enable these omni-channel processes and all these buzzwords we hear about today. So buy online, pick up in a store, or ship from a store, or actually online ship to a store, or maybe empower call center agents with these same capabilities now, and even extend these to empowering in-store sales associates so they can do all the clienteling scenarios that we talk about day in and day out. And it's not just limited to physical goods here. I mean, these can also support things like these complementary service-based offerings, right? So how do you support things that deal with people or time or appointments? And last but not least, a lot of talk here around focused on the sale. But this work around optimizing fulfillment and inventory in the supply chain, hey, a lot of enhancements here around the aspects that surround reverse logistics or returns. So that's, again, when you think omni-channel, it's just not meant for that personalization. Again, a lot of the work that Anjali, you mentioned, that also goes around fulfillment. Again, a really popular area today. A lot of work going on here to optimize omni-channel. So with that, I think before we start our final section, Heather, I think we got one more polling question.
We do. So the next polling question you'll see, we've got, in what ways do you sell to your customers today? And we have 5 options there that you can choose from. So we'll give you guys a few moments to go ahead and get those submitted, and then we'll get to the results.
And as folks are considering these options, again, the context here, our final section, today's content isn't limited to just retail and B2C type scenarios across the different industry sectors. Actually, we're seeing a lot of activity here with digital transformation around B2B type models. So what are manufacturers, what are distributors doing? So that's really the context as we begin this third and final section here. So we're interested in what kind of channels you use to sell and distribute your products and services.
We'll move into the results here. So Steve, I don't know if you or Anjali want to talk about it.
Sure, let's take a look at the results. Yep, so we seem like to have a bit of a mix here. Online, brick and mortar, a lot of B2C. Reps in the field also. It's really interesting and great to see that response from attendees. Some really interesting via sales reps only. And so I think when we see digital these days, we're really seeing digital also as a way to enhance that personal relationship that reps may have, for example, in the field with accounts. So yeah, digital transformation here clearly across a number of different channels. The one thing to call out here, and probably true these days is no one simply relying on stores to sell products and services. So yeah, not surprised by that, but it's good to see that validation. So great, thanks everybody for your responses. Hey, with that, in the interest of time, Anjali, let's. What do you think? Should we start our third and final section?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think this is going to be interesting to chat about for the firms who are selling in lots of different ways. So whether it's sales reps or direct-to-consumer or B2B, because kind of the third main shift that we're seeing in commerce when it comes to digital is a shift in how we're selling, the shift in which channels we're selling to our customers. So when I think of B2B today, we have some interesting Forrester data that shows us that customers are increasingly looking to digital channels, especially for lower consideration B2B decisions or for information when it comes to higher complexity and higher decisions with higher complexity. So looking at some of this data, we found that when it comes from between 2015 and 2017, for example, we're seeing an increase in B2B buyers who are not interested in interacting with a sales rep. So it's gone from 59 to 56%, and a much higher raise actually in buyers who prefer to gather their own information online. So that's actually jumped quite a bit from 53% who prefer gathering information on their own on digital channels to now 68%. So what this means to us at Forrester is we're starting to see a fundamental shift in the way B2B firms are specifically selling to customers. And this is actually going to impact B2B firms as well because the B2B selling model, especially if you're a B2C firm who's selling third-party goods, is changing today. So we believe that we're starting to see digital commerce professionals have to work with their leadership team to develop a strategy whereby the self-service commerce website is a necessary and equal partner to the B2B salesperson when it comes to the B2B selling process. They must serve both customers externally, that website, and that website must serve B2B salespeople internally as a research and transaction booking service. So we're seeing a huge increase when it comes to digital in the B2B selling model. We believe that it's a model where the self-service e-commerce website is going to figure much more prominently in the pre-sales process and then become the default destination for all transactions. We believe that the biggest exception to this will be those more complex transactions and the transactions that are tied to very large accounts that require some special care and feeding. So we believe that when it comes to B2B, the selling model has changed, right? The sales team is going to have equal importance now to the self-service website. But it's not just that this is how buyers and other businesses are going to purchase our products. We believe that the selling model will also change because we're starting to see more firms go direct to consumer. So these days we're starting to see lots of brands, spearheaded by branded manufacturers like Nike, who have long had a direct-to-consumer strategy, but even other types of branded manufacturers and distributors are starting to consider going direct to consumers. And this is going to be an interesting dynamic, whether you're in B2B and looking to grow direct to consumer, or you're a B2C firm who's traditionally sold third-party products, and now will start to have to compete against a new seller, that manufacturer directly selling. So that B2B selling model is going to change, and we believe that the move towards these direct-to-consumer models are because firms are interested in owning more of the customer experience. So when we at Forrester think about the customer experience, we think of it in terms of the customer journey. So customers engage with firms as they discover goods and services, they explore those goods and services, purchase the goods and services, use them, maybe ask for help if they need it, and then begin to establish an ongoing relationship. What's happening and why we're starting to see more firms start to go direct to consumer is today they've lost a significant portion of the customer during their journey. They've absolutely lost that customer during the transaction phase, and it's difficult to re-engage with that customer afterwards if they need help or to engage with that customer on an ongoing basis. So we believe that as firms start to go direct to consumer, it's made it more appealing because they can actually manage manage that customer relationship at every single point of the customer journey. We've seen firms already starting to do this. So I mentioned Nike. Nike is a great example, because they're already building stores. They've announced that they want the direct-to-consumer sales to start outpacing their B2B sales, and they sell a significant amount of product online. But what I think is interesting as they go direct-to-consumer, it's about, yes, the e-commerce relationship, but it's also about extending the customer relationship with new types of experience. So this is the VP of Global Brand Running at Nike talking about the Nike Plus app, which does things like monitor your running, your fitness, etc. It's really like a fitness tracker app. And what they said is that while gear, the things that they sell, like running shoes, is a sharp focal point for them, what they really want to see is the opportunity to extend and deepen the relationship with customers, making it more than just a dashboard of data. So the Nike Plus app is really about how do we engage with customers on an ongoing basis. We've started to see others acquire this direct-to-consumer relationship. So Dollar Shave Club, for example, was acquired by Unilever. And this is going to be a significant shift for them. And why they did this, if you read some of their statements, they believe that it's to have further growth in a specific market, the personal care business, access to a $40 billion male grooming market, have renewing revenue streams with a very active fan base of customers. But most importantly, they acquired Dollar Shave Club to gain direct-to-consumer know-how that they lacked. They want to have now be able to apply that direct-to-consumer knowledge to other parts of the businesses they own. So this is a really interesting way in which they start to acquire that direct-to-consumer knowledge and look to now spread it across businesses. This isn't going to be easy, though, for many of us. So in September, Mondelez, for example, announced that they were going to experiment with going direct-to-consumer with Oreo. They expected this to be a billion-dollar business across their different products. But what we found is that when it comes to selling Oreo online, for example, there are a lot of different challenges as a low-margin consumer product goods. They started out by selling things that were like holiday tins and personalized packaging. So they did this with pop-ups. But if you go to Mondelez and Oreo's website today, they don't continue to sell Oreo online. We believe there's going to be lots of different challenges for firms that go direct to consumer, especially in these lower margin consumer product goods categories. So this isn't going to be an easy journey, but we do believe that there can be some major gains when moving direct to consumer. It starts first and foremost by establishing a direct customer relationship, increasing brand awareness, building that long-term customer relationship across the customer life cycle. But it also has other business implications. It means that we can become less dependent on big box retailers, many of whom are struggling to compete with Amazon. We can also potentially target new buyers, buyers that are digital first, or maybe even buyers in new regions. So we're starting to see some firms go direct to consumers in new regions that they may not have reached previously. And lastly, there's a potential to boost margins by selling direct. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to the Perficient team who can talk a little bit more about some of this changing and evolving business model.
Great. Thanks, Anjali. Hey, interesting stats there, and we agree. I mean, there's no doubt the market is certainly acknowledging digital's impact on B2B. For those of us that are joining on the call today, any of you who may have also been attending a recent B2B conference in Chicago, boy, we can look back at that as just one validating point. I mean, that was an event that was just busting at the seams. But whether it's these industry events, analyst projections, trade publications that talk about this, heck, even sellers, even manufacturers and distributors that speak to their growth in digital. I mean, all great points, but I think they're all acknowledging this accelerating, this channel shift for digital for both manufacturers and distributors. And that's really the key point. I think Forrester has done a really nice job calling out as one of their conclusions that this is a channel shift that's accounting for these growth projections we see for business-related digital transactions. So as additional context, I'm just going to give you a couple perspectives here on how we see organizations evolving. On this first one, manufacturers. We see a lot of activity here. Now they're just blowing up the traditional demand chain, meaning, in a manufacturer's view, selling direct to customers, Anjali, as you mentioned, it's necessary to form these closer points of customer engagement. Now in most cases, the manufacturers certainly aren't looking to abandon any of those legacy channel relationships, for example, with their resellers, their distributors, their affiliates, but they are responding to the shift in buying preferences. And they're using digital, they're using commerce to integrate across not only the web, but also their call centers, their warehouse, and their distribution channels. Heck, they're even using this to align their presence on social media channels. So manufacturers, just one example of some of the responsiveness that's going on here. But not limited to just them, we also see a lot of activity with distributors. So they're also responding to this shift. But in a distributor's or a reseller's view, meaning, and just to be clear here, they're not making the goods. They're really focused on just selling goods. Their focus becomes on adapting and evolving digitally to strengthen relationships with their business customers. They want to be the trusted source for product research, for the purchase, and then obviously any support-related contact points. And I would say that supporting the Forrester conclusions, when you get into some of the details, they're seeing that the combination of a comprehensive and of a broad assortment along with robust product information, and when I say that, I mean things like inventory, order information, those type of things around product. These are the mandates for distributors to truly differentiate and provide value. And the last example that I'll provide for you here is there's also a growing segment of businesses that are responding to this shift with further investments that are looking to optimize their digital channels for what we'll just call B2B engagement. Here we're really speaking to experiential commerce for B2B, where the result becomes a solution that's delivering for businesses, right, a new authoring and catalog experience that's promoting collaboration among their commerce and their marketing divisions. So what the visuals here on the page are depicting for you is a single user interface for an enterprise's back office. So think of commerce, marketing, merchandising type people, where it blends catalog, it blends assortments, it blends corresponding B2B entitlements along with an enterprise's digital assets in a single authoring environment. So the difference here becomes then the single system with this reuse of assets that allow, for example, marketing teams who've historically had that focus on brand, and they're using systems like content management, which are great. And it also helps in commerce teams who've historically had that focus on just that path to purchase, and they've largely been limited to using commerce systems. We're bringing that together now. And so this investment is allowing for a single system that's powering all digital channels that's aligned across their marketing and commerce division. And it's interesting when you think about, well, who's winning here? Maybe stating the obvious, but the customer in the end is the winner here. And this is just one example. But when you break from those previous silos of just a commerce approach or just a marketing approach in building the brand, you break from those old sites that featured old designs, that weren't responsive from a customer experience perspective, let alone were they optimized for digital marketing initiatives, to these new digital presences that are really agnostic across form factors. So whether it's the web or mobile or tablets in the field, and they can really then begin to take targeted segments through B2B specific buying journeys. This is experiential stuff that can begin to optimize against digital marketing initiatives across paid, owned, and earned media that are really promoting then some innovative ways to do customer acquisition, engagement, loyalty type things. So with that, hopefully it's some interesting additional context. Anjali, I think I'll throw it back to you at this point for some final concluding thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we go over that last thought, if you have any final questions in the last few minutes, feel free to ask them as well. I know we've gotten one or two here. So I just want to kind of wrap up with this idea that when it comes to the this digital disruption that we're all facing, whether it's managing customer experiences, whether it is how to deliver omni-channel experiences, or changing and differentiating your selling models. The path ahead is really going to be an evolution. And we at Forrester believe that the path ahead is a 4-point evolution that has to start with your customers. So who are your customers and what do they care about? When you do that, then you can set your business objectives. Then you can begin thinking of your strategy and your roadmaps. But those are going to have to be the most critical, and how do you align resources as well is going to be critical in that strategy. But we believe firmly that it starts with the customer. It has to roll into your business strategy and your objectives, and that technology is last. Technology is what you do as a result and how you're going to move forward, but it can't be your guiding principle. Your customers have to kind of be your guiding principle here, and that's going to be a major evolution. So I'll leave you with that thought, and if we have any questions, I know we received one question about some of the data I showed, so I'm happy to answer that. I showed some data earlier that about 11.5% of online retail sales about 11.5% of sales are coming from online retail channels. We got a question, how does that compare to about 10 years ago? So we don't have data from exactly let's see, I do have actually data from 10 years ago, and we estimated that in 2007 it was 4.5% of total sales were coming from digital channels. And we're forecasting that it's going to continue to grow in the coming years. So we're forecasting that online sales will be about 12.7% of all retail sales in 2017. And we forecasted that out all the way up to 2021, where we believe about just over 16% will come from online sales. So we don't see it leveling off today. You know, the growth might start to slow down a little bit, but that's just because, you know, when you think about 10 years ago, in the early, late 90s, early 2000s, we saw such a spike in growth. So we're forecasting to continue to see that as well. So I hope that answers the question that came in. I'm not sure. I don't think we have any others, so I'll pass it back over to Heather.
Yeah. A big thank you to Anjali and Steve for today's session. If you guys have any more questions, please let us know. You can also follow up with us after the call. We will have a recording available on Perficient.com soon for sharing and review of the session, especially for those that had to drop early. And next, I would encourage you to follow our leaders online via Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and you can do that by visiting Perficient.com and click on the About More for more information. So as we conclude today's webinar, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. And again, feel free to reach out with any additional questions or requests for more information. Have a wonderful day.